Man, can I just say great defensive footy for the most part throughout this weekend. Now, does that mean less on the offensive side to gleam? Of course. But I think as a forward myself, we have to enjoy a little bit of tight physical play across all fronts. Let's get into it. Good weekend. A lot of upsets I really didn't expect. Let's go.
I need all the wins, yeah. Ain't no L's, I gotta get a no call and quits, yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard.
Here comes Danny Tucci-Zala, back to Baker, Baker with the fin. Kurt Baker in for DC, and this may well do it old glory with the try. The New Zealand Sevens legend, Kurt Baker with the cherry on top.
Can you believe it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the On the Line Rugby Podcast, a show brought to you by the Believe Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Nagaishi, and welcome back. Man, okay. I think the biggest elephant out of the room is we got to say, Satyrs, I was not expecting that out of you. Great work across the board to put a Rebel side who was hot in the fire and looking into really cementing, getting you into that last place spot, and to hammer it home with almost a blowout was really, really impressive. We'll get into really what happened, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm pretty sure that a majority of the problems coming from this Rebels team, at least this week, I hope not going forward, but at least this week, is based off of the loss of one person. It was revealed to me recently that they had recently lost Lukan Saikala-Loto, possibly for the year with an ankle injury. That looks to be that he'll get ankle and foot surgery. That's season ending. I think when you look at really what he brought to the table, he brought obviously great skills at the breakdown. He helped out at set piece effectively. He's one of the best set piece players, in my opinion, in Australia. And it was good that they got him back from Japan. On top of that, amazing in defense, his physicality to just bring people down, blow people off their breaks and stop the gain line movement. Amazing. And on top of that, with attack, bringing that same intensity. Gotta love it. And he showed it all this year. And surprisingly, losing him, I think, who was kind of, I guess now, the linchpin of this attack, did not really prove that well, because now they look lackadaisical on both offense and defense. Line speed was terrible and didn't really markedly improve to the mid-50s. Now, I don't understand why that would be the case, because you have Carter Gordon, you have more guys on this side, Andrew Kellaway, who do like to shoot up and bring the boom, at least for the most part this year. You had the Ulysses and friends who were on the field. All of them didn't really make plays. And in fact, it was so bad. Somehow, I don't understand this. Someone explain this to me, that and arguably having, my personal opinion, outside of the back row, better forwards across the board, like, for example, Josh Kemeny, Sam Talakai and friends, they somehow got their, I can't obviously say it, they got beat on every margin when it came to scrum time. They had leverage. They went high. They didn't have any push. They had no backup. And they got bullied around the park to the point where the Satyrs were just calling scrums like at the Springboks. What's going on? The fact that you had to bring on your entire bench for forwards at the 33rd minute is stupid. And don't get me wrong, they did drastically improve. But that doesn't mean that your defense did, because you were still stuck for like the next 20 minutes doing the same thing as you did for the first 30. So outside of scrums, which they kind of helped, the bar was low. Come on. What is going on here? Rebs, we have to really look at ourselves in the mirror and see what do we want to get out of this season. For those of you who don't know, obviously the Rebs are going to court. And despite the union calling for the jobs of all of the ARU board members, which failed, I guess, during this weekend, I'm not sure if that was a big distraction for them or not, but y'all need to wake up. We have, 8 or 9 weeks? We have about 2 months left, a little over halfway. You can still make a spot. You can still push. You're going to drop in these rankings, that's for sure. But you have a shot to really rebuild, and you're going to be facing a really tough road for at least the next 4 to 5 weeks. So now is your time to really look at yourself in the mirror and see what you got to do, because when you're letting the offense come to you and not dictating movement on the gain line and dictating how you want the tempo of their offense to attack you with, it's going to lead to a lot of these things. And obviously, you get an okay job at stopping Sevu Reese, but Sevu Reese still sets stuff up. And Chafee Hockey is looking like a rebounding menace after what I had arguably said was his kind of a duller moments over the last couple of weeks. Loved seeing him run great support lines coming out from deep. I really think that they need to move Chafee Hockey back into the 13 spot. I think he liked it way more than 15. He seems to be developing a lot more there as well. On top of that, Johnny McNichol from 15. I think we can all say the former Welshman is going off on all fronts. He had a little bit of a penchant for shooting up a little too eagerly early, and I think that cost them a lot of games. I think the Satyrs could have won a few games because of that if he didn't commit those penalties. But I think having him at 15 and allowing him to just basically roar through open field is exactly where he needs to be. Move Chafee Hockey back out of the 15 spot into that 13, and I think they'll be just fine. Satyrs, I'm so proud of you guys. You guys are finally starting to rebound despite having Rob Penny, which is I think deserves a lifetime achievement award in and of itself at this point. But again, both teams, long way to go. It could go either way. Satyrs and Rebs, you both control your own destiny. Let's see where that goes. As for Drua versus Moana Pacifica, I truly thought that this game was going to be at least a plus 17-ish blow for the Drua. And I really think that a lot of teams are watching film that what the Canes had did last week, because that single shooter sliding D is basically now the new blueprint stopping the Drua. Moana did it very well. They stopped a lot of the attack in open space. A lot of the line breaks were slowed down, at least tempered. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're going to have an Iosefo Masi line break every now and again, but when you have that kind of a defense, there's not a lot of room to move when you're just sliding into the teeth of that D. So looking at where a lot of teams can go, I think this will really, really hurt the Drua moving forward if they can't get the fundamentals correctly. Obviously, athleticism is great. When you look at the Drua, they probably have the best athletes in the world, especially in Super Rugby at that spot. But you need to work on basic tackle fundamentals and obviously keep themselves off of the back foot. Now, a lot of those open tries that they gave to Moana, despite, still winning in the margin, you're looking at overcommitting at set piece, whether it's scrums or lineouts. You can't do that. You always have to keep your heads up. And on top of that, just tackling high. You're going more for the wrap to stop an offload and not looking at how to just basically blow the brakes off them and keep them behind the gain line. Now, I understand you did that a little early and it led to a lot of penalties, but there has to be a happier medium than just going backwards on the back foot and allowing more teams to rip roar down your line. When you have guys on Moana Pacifica who are gonna show up and show out, at least with a modicum of effort, you gotta at least match them, because up front, they're gonna take those high tackles and just run amok with you. They already showed you that in the first opening week in Suva. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't do that again, but that's another thing we need to improve on. Definitely to keep yourselves off the back foot, because a lot of those tries I really think could have been avoidable on top of just communication if you just fixed the tackling and obviously kept your eyes up rather than just dipping your head down. I think Moana will need to work out better communication skills, just because if you look at the breaks that did happen, they could have had adequate cover. They did the right things. They slid over, but up to a certain point, it obviously stopped, and that left gaps. So like a guy like Iosefo Masi or Isaiah Armstrong Ravula would just throw a nice open pass and have the guy cut back in. They're overcommitting. You need to not be as over energetic and just focus on the man. Slide, mark down, and if not, mark back. You're obviously guarding the space, you're not guarding the man, and it could have been stopped. Either way, both teams were very avoidable in their tries. I think this game could have been a lot tighter based off of that if you took that down. So we have a shot. I think Tano Umaga is doing a great job this year. And obviously McBurn, got his team to the quarterfinals. I really think they could go higher, but it all starts with that. You can't rely on talent alone. We see it all the time in football and basketball. It's not going to work. You need fundamentals. Shout out to you, Lakers. Thank you to letting the Nuggets slide again, despite how much we wanted to lose. But in other news, let's move to the Blues and the Reds. I really thought the Reds looked lackadaisical in their attack. Just saw it like that with the Rebels. they couldn't stop the Blues staccato offense. Now, I say staccato, why? Because normally, when you look at the Blues, they're home run hitters across the board on their offense when it comes to the back line. You have your Caleb Clarks, your Cole Forbes, your AJ Lambs and friends. But now they're showing in true Vern Cotter fashion that they can move the ball through their forwards. And a good percentage of this game was down in the trenches, which is what I love to see. When you trust the big boys up front, things happen. And like that, it was beautiful. I really thought that the forward pack should have at least kept up against the Blues. Really didn't show up at all. Fessler looked a little slow. You had Harry Wilson looking mostly on the back foot, so he couldn't really do his patented offense. It was gritty, but not in the gritty that I wanted to see from either side outside of the Blues. Come on, guys. Like we have, this is a physical team. If they put themselves in the trenches, you guys had a chance, and I think you guys blew it on that regard. Outside of that, I really think Cole Forbes could be the man at 15 moving forward. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Zarn Sullivan ain't no G, because he is, especially off the boot. But when you have ball in hand and game management, especially in tackling, I really think Cole Forbes is him. Because if you look at every time he ran his support line, he was always in the right spot with the right timing at the right time, and things went his way. Also, when you're looking at the rest of this team, he plays very well with the rest of the squad. Obviously, AJ Lamb moving to 13 could have made room for Caleb Clark. Obviously, a great addition off the bench, but I think he could have been thrown in at 11 instead of Lamb, because Rico looks like he lost a step and is probing, and I don't know what's going on. Maybe he's still nagging from his injury. Maybe, I don't know. But combine that with Cole Forbes at 15, it could be a filthy lineup. His management of the ball, his management of space, and especially his defense, very physical. Gotta love it. I think he's one of the better young kids in Super Rugby, but that's really it. Also, oh wait, I forgot. The guy, Ryan, the 20-year-old for the Reds, I didn't even know that was possible, what you did. How did you juke out 4 people? We'll talk about it more in Team of the Week. But wow, that was impressive. As for the Chiefs, Malo, but what is going on with you guys? I really thought that the Taz could have had it in the bag for a majority of this game if it wasn't for stupid penalties and an overall lack of urgency. Again, you guys made a lot of tackles. We've kept the team in the back foot. Line speed was okay, but you're not covering as effectively as you should. That left a lot of open opportunities for the Chiefs to just throw nice front foot offload ball, obviously to guys like Imoni Narawa, obviously to D-Mac, and definitely to Sean Stevenson with that try early, but could have been fixed. I definitely thought that this Taz forward pack should have kept up. They should have been the most physical thing on the park. The Chiefs haven't really been looking that great in that regard, outside of a couple offensive opportunities by Ollie Norris. But what happened? It was a modest Chiefs side with mostly developmental players who were getting their debuts and getting serious minutes this game. And they didn't even show up. They were embarrassed on every margin. They got pushed back in scrums, definitely on defense. And on offense, they just let them run. And you should never let this team do that, because the Chiefs are just too clinical. If you let them on attack, they're going to destroy you in every intent of the word, and they'll take whatever you give them. And the Taz gave them a lot, so they took a lot. Obviously, this game was still close. I really thought Tane Edmond off the tee was fantastic. We didn't really get to see his game managerial skills plus on the offensive side to really do what I think he can do. But I thought that him protecting the ball when he was there was exceptional. They really did a good job in stopping that Chiefs back line, outside of obviously that Stevenson try and getting Imoni Narawa's double, which is basically just fundamental passing and just being open. They did a great job. I really thought that they could have moved the ball forward if they just had better cover for those Narawa doubles. I think even stopping one of them, especially because both of them were just wide ball, could have saved this game for you guys. So a lot of things to improve. We see what DC is doing with the Taz. We see kind of where the Chiefs want to go, but small margins. That's all that matters. I mean, it's going to be a large topic throughout the rest of these games. Small margins make a big difference, and things like this are easily avoidable. Chiefs, if you came into this game the way I thought you should have. We could have been a blowout, especially in the back line. But we'll see next week. As for the Canes, what happened? I think would be the starter. I wasn't able to watch this game. I was on the road, so I unfortunately had to rewatch part of this game and look through a lot of highlight film just to dig into what happened. And I was not expecting the Brumbies, who looked relatively anemic, to do what they did. Since when did Lolesio look very composed and this ready, especially off the tee? I always say Lolesio is not him, but he's really proven me wrong. I'm very impressed with how composed he was, running and managing with the ball, not only with it in hand, but obviously managing space, which is what he gets paid to do. And off the tee, the man was fantastic. Can't really knock him for it. It's a little spoiler. He did make the team of the week again. It's nice to finally see him develop. Perhaps that move to Toulon in this summer really did a lot for his development that Australia surprisingly couldn't do. I don't understand how you could avoid that. But, I mean, as a coaching staff, you probably have the best staff in Australia on the Brumbies, and they couldn't do it, and it took a French team to do it. Also, what happened to the physicality for the Canes? That was the thing that I really loved. You know, when you have like a Peter Lockeye, a Braden Inyose, Duplessis Krifi, all those boys were balling at all levels this year. And somehow, some way, y'all managed to just leave that alone. You know, at all points, not only in set piece, but especially in open play, you let guys like Rob Valentini just bully you. Yes, you did your cover D, but you were too passive. You didn't have your single shooter. And if they did, they moved like 2 yards forward, and that's it. You can't give the Brumbies this much acreage of space. You know how their backs are. And to boot, it was mostly the forwards playing this entire game. That was beautiful. Don't get me wrong. As a forward on offense, the Brumbies did a great job. But on D, what we doing? They out-physicaled you in every department. You need to do better. Again, great trenches play as a viewer, great trenches play as a player, but on true defense for you Canes fans, yeah, I think we need to have a long look in the mirror, because I'm not sure if you guys didn't come on fire for this game, but something happened. You guys took your foot off the gas for whatever reason, and these things happen, and it led to a lot of errors. I expected them to really try their best to do that single shooter attack. I loved watching it against the Drua, and this is another team, especially with that back line, where you need to do it, and rather than that, they kind of played a more passive attack compared to all year. It was kind of a mixture of a semi-blitz and mostly slide cover. So maybe that was the game plan the entire time, and maybe they just didn't execute it, or maybe they just took their foot off the gas. We'll never really know, I guess, but it definitely bit them to go away from what they have already shown is their bread and butter in this game. As for the Brumbies being relatively passive, they did a great job on D. I really thought that they took what the Canes did and turned it up to 11. And this is where I think defense was in this game. The entire time they were sliding, they had the single shooter, and especially they did something that the Canes haven't done all year, especially against an offload happy team like this. And I think they'll take this against the Blues and dominate heavy. And that is they went high and gang tackled. Now, instead of that single shooter on the Canes, like say, for example, a Brad Shields and friends just shooting up and laying the bomfa, they just went up, allowed them to slow the attack down, held them up, stopped that offload, and the rest of the guys just ganged and pushed them back. And that worked all game. Now, do I feel that the Canes could have countered that easily? Yes. I think it could have went more physical, but they didn't do it for whatever reason. Perhaps the second half adjustment just wasn't there. But I think that was definitely something that the Brumbies did exceptionally well this entire game, especially through the backs. A lot of the backs did a lot of the work in terms of that single shooter offense. And I love to see it, especially when you're playing a more arguably physical team like the Canes. You need to have your backs on all cylinders, and definitely they were firing, and it was nice to see. They killed every opposition opportunity for them to really take it, especially in their territory. the Canes opportunities in their territory. Not a lot succeeded. And I would say outside of that Ruben Love break that I think was more along the lines that he was just being magical. If you take that away, I think they were plus in that margin easily. So hats off to the Brumbies. As one fan said on the game stream that I was watching, you're giving them hope. And it's kind of going to be interesting. I would love to see them make that transition and translate from last year to this year late, to rebound, to show it's not how you start, it's how you finish, and make it into the playoffs. And not only do make it into the playoffs, but dominate again. It'd be interesting to not see a New Zealand versus New Zealand final. I was kind of hoping it would be the draw, but honestly, with the way they're playing and the different styles that they can play against, the Brumbies could be them. And as tragic as that would be for me, I have to say it's better for footy. So good luck to you guys. And as for the Landers and Western Force game, that game was just a hard game to watch. I kind of had to turn the replay off after 20 minutes, and I just moved to extended highlights, which is about 15 minutes of the game. And overall, I think the biggest thing I gleaned was that it was a sloppy effort from both sides. Tons of side entry, not releasing, and knocks. A lot of it was urgency, just lack thereof of it. I think you were playing too frantic. You're looking for too much home run hits, and that obviously showed. It was a good showing for the rebound of what I consider to be one of the more polarizing players this year in Jacob Ratovuki-Nikins, but I hate to see how polarizing he is when it comes to the whistle. He didn't do a card offense, and he basically busted almost 200 yards off just himself, and he played great D, but put his team on the back foot way too much, and I think it led to a lot of things. Obviously, I understand he's an electrifying player. He's going to look for home run hits, but you can't do that all the time. You're not him yet. This is your first real breakout year, and you could blow it if you keep doing this. So keep a lid on it. Hopefully, Jamie Joseph can develop him, because in the next couple of years, he could be a freak of nature. But I think we need to wait and see in that regard and let him kind of come into his own instead of trying to basically show the Blues, the bird for cutting him the way they did. I really think that the Force need more time to gel to see rapid results. I loved what I saw last week. Obviously, this week was kind of less than. It was mostly in the trenches. A great game defensively by both sides to really hammer it home. I loved watching the Force scrum it out, especially in that 5-meter line early in the game. Beautiful. Your defense in their own territory was a great thing to see, and I loved it. But backline wise, I think we need more time to gel. Obviously having a Hamish Stewart, having a Kurtley Bill is great. We saw Donaldson do more of the same that I saw last week in terms of being that freelancing third pivot. I loved seeing Hamish Stewart kind of manage that game better for him. I wish I could have seen Kurtley Bill do the same things he did last week. Hopefully we see it next week, but they're going to need more time. But you can see the direction, and you can't argue it is fantastic. As for the Landers, I think the Reese Patchell loss, which did not look good, will definitely screw them over. If you look at how this team goes, I really think they're best when Patchell is on the field managing, and the former Welshman is going to be severely missed for this team. Cam Miller is okay, but I don't think he can really hit his mark this year. I think he's going to need more time to develop, especially off the bench, but thrusting him in there is going to be an interesting sight to see. So here's to hoping. Outside of game recaps, that's going to be it, but let's move into the team of the week. I think this one is pretty self-explanatory for those of you who watch, so I won't really get into the breakdowns of why, unless it's really that important. Fletcher Newell and George Bell, I think, earned that spot up there just because of the dominance in scrum against the Rebels, who easily could have, at least tried to push them around, but, such is life. Xavier Numia, for what it's worth, defense and attack was amazing. Obviously, that double tries did help, but just his immediate efficiency when it comes to not only tackling, but running with the ball, actually going over the gain line and keeping it within their hands. Great shot. Patrick Tuipulotu, I got to say, just clinical. If you look at what he did in terms of managing the Blues, especially in the middle, his powerful run and passing skills had to be in here. Rotio Sula from the Drua, I thought did a great job disrupting lineout play, being very physical in the breakdown. Didn't really do a lot on the offensive side of the ball, but did enough. So you're in here. Wallace Atiti, I did not know your name until the Chiefs game. You did a great job. I think you managed to hit about 15 tackles and about 49 meters, including a try. Great job to you. Great efficiency. Hope to see you more on the field. It was amazing. So please watch his highlights if you can, because his schoolboy film is amazing. And I can't believe I slept on this kid because he is a baller. It's going to be nice to see a guy take that almost Lachlan Boshier stance when it comes to this team. They have missed it since really he went to Japan. Callum is okay, but this guy is him, and it'll be nice to see him moving forward, coming into that 6 or that 8 spot. Dalton Popoli, Hoskins 2, I feel like that's kind of obvious. They're the team. I really think the forwards of the year in that regard for 7 and 8. Cortez Ratima, I think, did a great job managing with pass accuracy and especially with ball in hand. Great job managing the game. One of the team's leading try scorers and still one of the best managers in the game. You should have been with your boy Revez Rehana, but you're doing the best you got, and I can't blame you for balling the way you did. 10, honestly, as I said, Nolu Lolesio for all the reasons I said above. Tim Ryan, the guy from the Reds. Man, watch those highlights, please. It was fantastic. The fact that he hurdled somebody, juked out the entire team, and then ran it in for a hat trick. That was a beautiful thing to see on debut. Love to see it, especially running those good support lines. Even when he wasn't scoring, he was doing all the right things. Staying deep, running great support lines, playing good on defense, and obviously helping out the boys and managing the space. Great job to him. Hope to see that moving forward. Hunter Paisami, I really thought, despite losing, the IQ was there. He set up a lot of opening spaces and moved the attack way more than it should have. The Blues D really had them locked down. Yosef Omasi, still one of the best players on the Jura. Really the only guy that could really crank the ball open. Every time he touched the ball, he got it into someone's hands or did it himself. Plain and simple. Mark Talea, same thing as Yosef Omasi, just really being there and being a clinical player, doing all the right things, getting the ball moved, and especially, obviously, setting up that try. Amazing. Jacob Ratavuki-Niemkins, I put you up here just because of the fact that you blew up the game with, I think, almost 200 meters, and especially on attack. But you got to kill those. You got to kill those penalties, my boy. Just please. You could be a absolute unit if you just stop the penalties and stop being a home run hitter. You'll be set. As for the bench, I went for a 4-4 split. I went with Jeff Tamuga Allen for my reserve prop. Just doing, again, all the bright things as a prop. Really helping to hold up that red scrum that I really thought, while they could have did better, he did all he could. And that's all that matters. Kurt Eklund, I really thought his scrums were great. Obviously, his lineup throws to Pachetui Pelotu were clinical, and especially on attack, very physical. I need to see that more, though, because I do miss those vintage years with Leon McDonald. But as for my 18, I have George Bauer, again, just doing all the right things and especially dominating at that point of attack against the Rebels. Great job. I have Itonia Waka, the lock/loose forward for the Drua, just because, again, doing all the right things, being physical, being a breakdown menace, needed to be said. As for my backs, I have Hamish Stewart, just because he looked clinical in doing all the things I needed for him to do as the first pivot for the Western Force, whether it was taking the ball himself, probing the line, and not only that, breaking the line, but especially making quick, very, very pinpoint accurate passes to the people that needed it, especially Kurtley Beale to get it out wide. If a couple of those weren't knocks or didn't go into touch, it would have been more home run hits. You need to be lauded for that. Cole Forbes honestly could have made it into the 15. I had him at 15 before moving JRK in there. He'll be there soon enough. Tamaiti Tua for the Brumbies, I really thought just on defense, he did a great job in not only setting the tone physically, but also on attack, just running where Lola Steele told him. And this is exactly what I mean. If you look at wherever Lolesio was calling for the attack and he needed a center there, Tua was always going to be there. And on top of that, he ran clean straight lines even when he wasn't getting the ball, which is sacrificial. And I think one of the biggest things that I like about a selfless play, and especially on attack when he did have the ball in hand, those clean lines led to tries and at least led to breaks. And he did all of that by himself. So props up to you. 23, Ruben Love. If you had more of an impact in this game, I probably would have put you at 15. But again, you deserve to be there, not only because of the highlight play, but just because of what you do. You kept it all in front and you gave it all you had on the field. You deserve a spot here. But that's going to be it for me this week, guys. Hope to see you next time. Peace.